Wow, you can see every freckle on my face when I don't have TikTok as a filter to shield me, huh? Alright, hello everyone! Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be talking about how your practice changes over time, because you probably hear seasoned practitioners say all the time, oh, your practice is going to change as you grow and evolve. And sometimes those changes are gradual to the point where you don't even notice that they're happening until after the fact, and then you look back on yourself and it's like, whoa, I am a changed person. And other times those changes can be really sudden and overwhelming. You might be thinking to yourself, am I doing the right thing? Are my deities going to be upset with me? What if I make a mistake? So I'm going to talk about all the ways that my practice has changed in the hopes that it can make you guys feel better as you're going through those kinds of journeys, and so that you can see it's normal. So what I did was I dug out my old grimoires, books of shadows, whatever you want to call them. I do want to put it out there that your grimoire, book of shadows, whatever, does not have to be a work of art, right? I like them to look cool though. That's just my preference. That's what I like to do. I find it relaxing to draw and color in them and make them creepy looking for my future family members to look through when I die and be like, who the fuck was this woman? What was she up to? But that's just me. But then I also have this one, which is just my very basic, bare bones, handwritten, not fancy one. So I bookmarked or tabbed a couple pages in each of them to show things that I maybe don't believe in anymore, or have changed my stance on, or some mistakes that I made when I was kind of just really starting this. I've said in previous videos, when people ask, oh, how long have you been a witch? That's a really difficult question for me to answer, because I've been doing things that could be considered witchy for a very long time in my life. But I really only took on the title of witch a couple years ago, and that is when I started logging things. So we're gonna be looking at Hannah in the midst of the pandemic, finally accepting that witchcraft is not evil and trying to learn everything about it. So I'm gonna start in this one, and we're gonna take a look at some cringy things. So right off the bat, first page, I had a thing, there's some water damage to it now, but it was like physical traits of people who were born witches. I have changed my stance a lot on whether or not you're born a witch or whether you become a witch. I definitely think that there is such a thing as hereditary witches. And sometimes I wonder if I am one, because certain people in my family have really incredible spiritual abilities. But the fact that I was trying to figure out if I was a witch rather than just deciding that, yeah, I'm a witch, just already shows that, like, oh yeah, I have changed a lot. I have a psalm that I was planning on saying every Wednesday that I do not. Maybe I should get back into that. Maybe I should have a psalm that I say every day, or, you know, implement that into my daily practice more. And that's another thing. As you're going through your practice and your old things, you might come across things that you wrote down 2 years ago, and you're like, oh, maybe I should revisit that. Maybe I should start doing that again. We find that a lot. So I had things that I wanted to research, like a whole list of things to look into and research, and one of the things on that list was lost civilizations like Atlantis. Now, Atlantis was an idea that was originally coined by Plato, but has unfortunately been used in a lot of racist spiritual ideals over the past few years. So I didn't know that when I was looking into this. I thought that, like, Atlantis was a real spiritual phenomena that I should be looking into. And now I know that no. Oh my gosh, I have a thing in here that's like, wear no more than 3 crystals at once. This will lead to crystal chaos. What? Now that I more so lean or err towards chaos magic, I'm looking at this like, girl, wear as many crystals as you want. Like, it doesn't matter. Oh, I had a thing where someone had gifted me some candles associated with the Sabbats, and I didn't know what the Sabbats were. So I have like a little note to myself, like, look up what Ostara means. Look up Letha. Look up Belton. Oh. I have my first spell that I ever performed written down in here. It was a distance healing spell using rose hips. And I remember doing this in my old bedroom. And I just look back and I'm like, oh. Okay, and I now have some of the first sigils I did, learning how to do sigils. This one says, I am loved, and this one says, I am brave. I was told at first to always have your sigils be in I am statements. That's not true. You can have your sigils be whatever you want, but that's how I started out with them. And I definitely still use a ton of sigils in my practice to this day. Whenever I'm doing a spell, I'll like look through all of my grimoires, like, do I have a sigil for that? And if not, I will make one. It's definitely something that I still use a lot. Okay, now I'm going into my leather-bound book that has some, I'm not an artist, but like it looks prettier than this one. First mistake that I made is that this book is backwards. It was supposed to be this way, but I did it this way. That doesn't matter. It's just a funny tidbit of mine. I think because I'm left-handed, it made sense in my mind to, oh, the flap on the left side. Anyway, so again, I have there's a thing going around, like certain sects of witchcraft, they're like, oh, you shouldn't share your grimoires and your books of shadows. And like, if you don't want to share them, you don't have to, but I don't care. I'm not gonna like get cursed or die if I show you guys pages from my grimoire. It's okay. So I have a protection thing at the beginning of this one, and all of my other, even my current grimoire has one that says Holy Trinity. This is back when I thought that there was still a Trinity. Protect this book from wandering eyes and prying looks. Amen. Aww. Like I said, I have something similar to this, but now I believe in more than just a Trinity. So again, that in of itself shows that I have changed a bit. So the first thing that I had in this grimoire, and this was back when I still lived with my parents and I was in the broom closet, is everything that I kept on my altar at the time. I don't know why I felt the need to write everything down, especially because I don't do that anymore. I think now that I have 4 altars, I think I just have too much stuff to write it all down. I think I saw on a website somewhere that was like, oh, you should write down everything that you have on your altar, and I just went with it. Don't do that anymore. If you want to, then hey, but it's not for me. Okay, so this is another thing that I don't do anymore. Anything that was considered an amulet, a charm, or a talisman, I wrote it down. Now, unfortunately, after I was kicked out of the house and all of my things were destroyed, I no longer have anything in this section of the book. Actually, that's not true. I have the cross necklace is on Jehovah's statue over here. So that's not true. I do still have that. But yeah, everything else is gone. But even so, I had things on here that like talk about balancing your chakras, because I didn't know that that was a concept that was really often appropriated. So now I just don't even incorporate chakras into my practice anymore. Maybe I will one day if I can get taught about it from a proper teacher, and I can make sure that I'm not appropriating it. But for this time, that is not something that I include in my practice anymore. I also just don't write down like which pieces of jewelry are for what anymore, because I have a pretty decent memory and just kind of know what's what. Like, oh, I wear this bracelet for this, or I wear this necklace for this deity. Like, I just don't see the need to write it down anymore. So I wrote down my entire birth chart, my entire personal astrology. I wrote it all down. And this is just pages and pages. Let me see if I can, where does this end? Like, just all of my signs, all of my houses, like everything. Wrote it down. And I sometimes do reference this when people say like, oh, this moon sign is gonna be affected by this. I'll be like, what's my moon sign again? The thing is though, astrology is a really vast and at times difficult concept. And while I'm glad that I have this so that I can reference myself, I am by no means an astrologer. And I don't see that in my path anytime soon, but I am okay with that. I'm okay with just knowing my personal astrology and understanding it to the best of my ability for me. Don't know if I could do it for anyone else. So I had a lot of pages in here where I used the Theban alphabet, and there's lots of like posters and stuff that you can get for the Theban alphabet, and I need to get one now because I used to use it a lot and I don't anymore. And so now I don't remember what these say. So I need to get one of those charts so that I can look back at these and be like, what was I talking about? So when I first started, I was very against baneful magic. I didn't want to do that. I was like, no, love and light only. But you kind of see me starting to dip my toes into this territory because I started doing banishing spells, more Theban alphabet. But I was like, no, I'm gonna use these to banish evil and to banish toxic people. Like, that's not baneful. Depends who you ask. Oh, I was so innocent. More Theban alphabet. Like, was I just trying to be mystical? You know, they say like use a different alphabet for secret messages. It works because now I don't even know what I put in there. Oh man, one of the biggest changes that I think I have documented is on a page. I had a whole section about various biblical figures, and obviously the first one that I wrote about was Jesus. I did not used to believe that Jesus was a witch. I do now. But I have written in here the first sentence. Some Christian witches claim the reason why Jesus was so powerful was because he was a witch, but I disagree with this notion. I believe that Jesus was powerful because he was the Son of God. However, we as humans have been given a mission to be like Jesus, and I see the craft as a great way of doing this. This is still true, but I think if we are to look at Jesus as both fully God and fully man, then what he was doing as a man would very much be considered witchcraft, which is why I now consider him to be a witch. I've also heard several other arguments in favor of Jesus being a witch, and after listening to those, I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Okay, we get a bit more into the baneful magic territory when I start talking about binding. And again, what all do I have in here? Oh, I have a thing about what is binding, and I wrote down, binding can be thought of as a way of preventing someone from doing something, preventing them from doing harm, or even preventing them from being in your life. It can also be used to release that which is in your life that no longer suits you. That's true. Binding does not inherently have to be baneful, but you're definitely dipping your toes into baneful territory. Oh God, I did not know that it was problematic to say things like black magic and white magic. So I had a thing in here that says there are some taboos surrounding binding though, and some even see it as a form of black magic. Hannah! This is what I mean though when I say that you grow and change in your practice and you learn new things. Now I know that there is a lot of problematic themes behind saying the words black magic and white magic. And if anyone doesn't know, let me know and I'll talk about it in the comments. But because I now know that it's problematic to say that, I don't say it anymore. But I didn't know that at the time, so it is now in here in Sharpie. It is permanent. But that's okay because I choose to see it as, you know, I've learned, I've grown, I've changed. This was my first grimoire as a baby witch. There's gonna be mistakes. So this is interesting. I don't do this anymore, and maybe it's a trauma response, I don't know, but before every spell that I used to do back when I still lived with my parents, I had a whole ritual for calling the corners and casting a circle. Everyone has a pre-spell, getting ready, preparation, whatever, that everyone's is different, right? Some people just jump right in, some people want to do some protection stuff. So I had a whole thing, you know, the idea of calling the guardians of the watchtowers. I had read that each of the 4 main archangels corresponds with a direction, so I would call upon them, and that was my way of calling the quarters. And I haven't done this since I was kicked out of the house because once I was living in school, you know, my altar was facing a different direction than it was at the house, and I just kind of fell out of it. But I was looking through this just to get ideas for what to talk about in today's video, and I was like, you know, I kind of want to get back into that. So again, this is another example of, you might look back on your practice and things that you did a long time ago and be like, you know what? I want to start doing that again. As much as I like, you know, like I said, chaos magic or really quick spells like light candle, sprinkle herb, go, you know, I also do kind of miss the mystical feeling of having something being ritualistic. So maybe I'll start that again. Okay. So this is another example of Hannah making a mistake early on in her practice. I have a whole bunch of several pages about a closed practice because I didn't know that it was closed. I have a whole thing in here about Kabbalah because I didn't know that it was closed. Now, it's okay to learn about closed practices as long as you don't partake in them, but I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna, you know, I was trying to do it, not knowing that there was a whole initiation process and blah, blah, blah. Now, granted, if you legitimately feel like something is your path and you're willing to go through everything that you gotta go through to get initiated and do it, then yeah, sure. I eventually decided that it was not my path, especially upon finding that it was closed. And again, I just try to take this as me learning from mistakes from when I was first starting. I have a whole thing about various psalms that you can use for different things, which again, I feel like I just forget that I have these in here. You guys gotta remind me, like, hey Hannah, you got all those psalms in your grimoire that you don't ever use. I want to start using them more, and I just never do because I just never think to. I need to start doing this more. See, you can already see my practice potentially changing as we speak. This is before I started working with demons, clearly. A banishing spell against hordes of demons and other evil influences. This is before I knew that demons were not inherently evil. And I referred to Father God or Jehovah as the Y word probably a lot in here because I didn't know that that was disrespectful. But we're better now, right? Again, you're gonna find mistakes in your old stuff looking back. That's fine. You just gotta be accountable for them and be like, okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. And that's really the biggest thing when people say like, I've made a mistake, you know, what do I do? Or especially if like you're partaking in a closed practice and you don't know that it's closed. It's good to just kind of cleanse your space with the intent of apologizing to any spirits that you may have offended. But the biggest thing that you can do is just acknowledge that a mistake was made and stop doing it. And like I said, you know, my practice is still continuously changing. You guys saw me looking back on things and being like, oh shit, I should get back into that. In my current grimoire, I have a whole page dedicated to the Morrigan, who I don't work with anymore because I wrote it all down when she was still with me. This stuff happens. So it's okay for your ideas to change. It's okay for your practice to change because you are going to change. Humans change all the time, and that's okay. Acknowledge when mistakes are made, take accountability for them, and don't do it again. But they are going to happen. Your beliefs might change. You might switch practices entirely. I used to be so against working with pagan deities, and now the bulk of my practice is pagan deities. It's all part of the process. So I hope you guys like this video, and I hope that if you find that your practice is changing, this is able to bring you some comfort. Make sure you follow me on all the social medias, which are linked down below. Patreon is also linked down below if you want to learn more about witchcraft, spells, be able to have access to books, really old grimoires, be able to vote for the podcast, which will also be down below. All of that is on my Patreon. And of course, please, pretty please, check out my shop. Get yourself a custom deity candle, a mystery box, some jewelry, what have you. And that is down in the description below as well. Thank you guys so much. Let me know what other kind of content that you want to see in this channel. I'm still kind of figuring it out, but I'll see you guys next time. Bye.